all white, so some color.
On the ceiling?
No, on the walls.
On the walls. I was just going to say, who's going to get up there on that ceiling to make those changes?
Yeah, I'd like to do that with brown carpeting, so I'm looking for some color.
Color. Okay. And, you know, spring really does it to you, right? You look outside and you say, yes, I need something that's bright in the house. Well, get ready. Please welcome a woman whose mystery novels you probably read as a child. Just kidding. But her name is Nancy Drew. I'm sure you've been haunted for life by this. You're a designer with Laurel Design Associates, located in Greensburg, and a member of the American Society of Interior Designers. Let's welcome her to Pittsburgh's Talking this morning. Let's get started. What do we do?
Well, the first thing we're going to look at is I have some techniques for applying paint to walls. So you can change those white walls by adding color and doing interesting things. The first thing we're going to look at is doing sponge painting.
Sponge painting.
Sponge painting.
Does this mean I should put on the rubber gloves right now? Okay.
I'm going to give you a pair.
We're over here.
I'm going to give myself a pair, and we're going to roll up our sleeves and get started.
Roll up our sleeves, get started. Tell me this is easy.
This is very easy, and it's honest. Very easy.
Okay.
Now, it's something that all we're going to do is start with a bucket of water. We've already selected our paints, and we're going to use a sponge, not your typical house sponge. What we need are sea sponges, sponges that have irregular shapes.
Where do we get them?
It's something that you can buy them in a hardware store, your paint supply stores, almost any place. If you're down in Florida, pick one up in Tarpon Springs. It's something that you can get them almost any place.
Sea sponges, okay.
Sea sponges, and you can see they come in all different shapes and sizes and textures.
See the sea sponges, yes. Okay.
Okay, now the first thing we need, I've already got these wet. I'm going to give you a sponge, and I'm going to give myself one. Now, before we get started, what I've got here is I've got a base coat of just the latex paint on the wall.
Okay.
I've selected some strong colors, but if you're doing yours at home, you can go with some that are much more subdued. But for today, we're a little bit brighter. This is just a plain latex paint, just on the walls. Apply it any way you want. You allow that to dry, and now we're ready to begin with our sponges.
Okay.
What we do is we're just going to dip it in, get a little bit of paint on it, and then kind of blot it off.
Me too?
Yep, go ahead. Get a
Same
little
color?
Bit, same color.
Okay.
Or you can do green.
I'll do green. Then
okay.
we'll be a little bit different. All right, here we go.
Just blot it in, and you can
dip it in, blot it down. This is fun.
And what we do then is we just blot it on a piece to get off the extra blobs.
Extra blobs.
Blobs isn't a design term. And it's something that we're strictly going to random. We're going to start in the center, and we just touch it enough. And as you're doing it, you just randomly turn the sponge and let it go around.
Not bad.
And what
have to space them out, though, right?
You just space them out, and you can start to overlap them as the colors add. You just continue to add the colors, and they blend, and you can see what I've done was I started with the pink on this side, and I thought the pink was a little bit too strong for my wall coverings and my wall treatments and the rest of what I was doing, and so I just proceeded to add the green and the blue over top of it.
This is so neat. So what kind of paint is this?
This is just standard latex paint. It's an eggshell satin, so it has a little bit of a sheen to it, but it's not anything major.
For a standard room, how much paint would we buy of
For
this?
a standard, you would have to know your square footage, and you go to your paint dealer and you tell them you've got a square footage, so many square feet to a room. Now with this, you're going to wind up having to buy a little more paint because you've got different colors.
Right.
So you're going to need a different color for each one, which means you may need a gallon, because instead of doing 2 coats in one color, you're going to add several colors as you're going.
So would we buy a gallon of each of the dabbly colors?
Actually, what I'm just doing is quartz that you can see, and you work on an area about the size of this at a time. And what you do, you would start with one color, and you would proceed and finish all of the one color, and then you start with your second color. You sometimes need to stand back from it a little bit to see how it looks, but you can see it's just.
This looks like a Monet painting.
As the sponge starts to lose a little bit of paint, you find that your intensity of the color is not as strong, but it still works well on the sponging.
This is fun.
And so you just do that. Now another technique that you use sponges for is what I've done down here. We can put these down if we're
Just take me through this step by step,
Okay.
okay? Because I'm
Just set them
feeling a little
down.
klutzy this morning. All right.
Stick those in
Okay.
there. The next technique I've used is I've taken the sponging, and what I've done is another technique for applying paint, which is masking. What we've done is I've actually taken and masked off an area and painted, so I've created the sponges and kind of confined the area that we were painting. Instead of having it be the entire space like we were doing up here with an overall, I've decided they stick to the rubber gloves. And we've created, done with the same technique with the sponge painting, we've created the stripe. So we've got no paint here aside from our base coat, and then an extra layer where I've gone heavier on the sponging. So you can see how you can control the amount of paint where you can get more of a solid look as opposed to just a lighter look.
This is such a neat idea. So do you tape this whole
Actually, I just tape the edges. I just tape the edges. It's something that you can make a checkerboard pattern with. You can make stripes. You can make them thinner stripes, wider stripes. I just tape the area. Now, if you're doing a checkerboard pattern, it may be easier to just block off a piece of cardboard and cut the cardboard your shape and still tape it off to do that kind of an effect.
All right. And now what's in the middle here?
This next one, what I've done is, this is stenciling, which is another method of applying paint. For here, I have just strictly gone out and bought a stencil. It's something, though, that you can very carefully design your own stencil just out of a piece of acetate, or you could use plastic notebook covers, the clear plastic. That's just a stiff plastic enough. You decide a design, and then you cut it out, and you can select the colors, and then you just peel it off to reveal the pattern below.
Let me help you on this end.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
neat.
you see, it's just
Let's hold it up to the camera here.
pink. It's just a plain piece of plastic.
you
It's
go.
very flimsy, and you just tape it down.
Wonderful. Now, how did you get the lines?
I did the masking as well. I had a piece of masking tape here and there before I started the stenciling, and before this below. I did the strips, and then I just strictly painted it with a little edge brush.
An edge brush.
I just went right through, and it kept my lines because I had the masking tape on both sides.
Let's show this. Where do you get this?
I just got that at a paint store.
No kidding.
Yeah, and the total set was like maybe $5 for that, the pan, and a couple other things.
This is such a neat idea.
Now, the idea with the stenciling, this has painting above and below your bordering and that, but you can also use this as a wall treatment above or below commercial wall coverings, like a border or something that you could buy, that gets a little more intricate detail than this. And I've got a sample of that to show you as well.
I think this could be the new bedroom look right here. How about any of you ladies want to make changes? You like it? You have a question? Okay.
Okay.
Why don't you hold this stuff? Where did that microphone go? I've got the masking
do
tape
that.
sticking to me. One question real quickly. Yes.
Okay, my question is, my walls are rough plaster.
This is great
That
for
would
rough
work.
plaster because the rough plaster is going to add some extra texture to it.
Right.
But it's also with the sponge. If you look at the sponge, it's got teeth and lots of holes that's going to get into those little divots
So that'd be
in
great
the
on
rough
that
plaster.
surface.
So it's wonderful to give you some extra color because the rough plaster you can't wallpaper.
I've got to say, you know what's neat about this, Nancy, is that you see these techniques in magazines, but until you see them for real and see someone else doing them in motion, it looks so daunting. I think
Yeah.
we could do this.
I could even get the kids doing it.
Oh, there's a better idea. Do they rent out?
Great time.
For a price.
Gladly.
Maybe for free. We're going to take a break and come right back in just a moment. All right. We have our work gloves on. We are ready to rock and roll here. We're with Nancy Drew, who is a designer, an interior designer, with Laurel Design Associates from Greensburg. She's given us a great speckling, dabbling paint technique. And now we're moving along to, what is this coming up?
We're going to a technique that is called combing, and it's one where we're going to remove paint on the wall to create a pattern. Now, it's something that I have just taken an ordinary squeegee,
Here we go.
standard squeegee. You can even use a window scraper, and what I've done is I've just taken scissors and cut teeth in it. Now,
make it
you
look like
hold
a
that for
comb,
a second.
right?
I'm going to start to, again, I've got a paint surface on here, but what I've got is I've got a satin or a semi-gloss enamel on here, so it's a shinier finish as my base coat. I'm again using the same latex paint and making a mess.
That's okay. We clean up messes very well.
Yeah. Now, what you do is you just apply the paint onto that.
What was that thing that you just used?
It's just a
paint applicator.
You can use a roller.
Okay.
It's something that this is a technique that's going to take two people to work together, because as one applies the paint, the next person has to remove the paint or start the technique. And all you do is you make strokes that go from the top to the bottom. You start it, you pull it, and it starts to create lines or waves. Now, I need to pull this down, but it's something that's very easy to do as it creates a pattern. And then you just wipe the paint off.
Oh, that's so neat. So would you normally just go straight or go crooked?
You can go either direction depending on what you want to create on the wall. You want to try it?
Okay, here we go.
Next section, just briefly.
Are we okay on this? Yeah. Am I going to look great with hot pink on this suit?
Okay.
Is Joni at Kaufman's worried now? We're going to be very careful. Yes.
It's going to be fair enough.
Okay.
You just start.
Now what do I do?
You apply an even pressure, and you just pull it down, and you can make straight lines or curve it on a texture.
Oh yeah, we're curving
behind.
now.
And just pull it down.
Oh my gosh, that is
And
neat.
it gives you a different technique and another possibility.
So see, you already have texture on your walls, but for those of us who don't, this is a neat. Now what does texture do to a room?
Texture just adds some interest to the eye as you look at it in that. Adds some interesting. Now we can take our gloves off.
Okay, gloves off.
And we are going to move to...
No hot pink on the suit. Did well, okay.
We did well on that. We're going to move to a couple other techniques with some borders and some things that we can do on here. The next wall, now this could, I've got a plain backdrop that's actually a backdrop that's striped, but this could be your plain walls, or it could be your textured walls, or your sponge painted walls. And what I've done is I've just started to show you how you could very inexpensively add some color or change the room. Now this is one that's a bright, that's a country French kind of a look that would be wonderful in a kitchen, just to brighten it up, and gives you a little bit of a different look, adds some added interest.
What do narrow stripes do to a room when one applies them?
Narrow stripes, as you get farther away from it, you're going to find that you just get a look of a solid color area, especially on this where I've got almost a tone-on-tone blue. Wider stripes will have a tendency to cause a large pattern and make the room start to close in on you.
Okay,
but the narrow
stripes don't
really
do that.
Okay. No, are really quite nice. Now, this takes off.
We'll pull this down.
The next one I've got, this is a vinyl border that you can show. That could be something that you could add. Again, it gives you a little more of a contemporary look, geometric look. Similar backdrop, but again, it could be a plain color. Could also use it in a bathroom or something. Kind of fun for
kind of southwestern.
Yeah. Now, another one is, we're looking at doing a children's room. Got a border for the children's room, and these are all wonderful things because in an average room that's 12 by 15, you only need about 18 yards of border. So with the price of board ranging from anywhere from maybe $1.50 a yard to $25, you've got a very inexpensive treatment. Great. Now this is nice. Let's leave that one up there because this is one that you could actually even do a double border if you wanted to in a children's room.
That's a great idea.
You've got it at the children's level as well as a room up at the ceiling that gives them some added interest. This could have a chair row below it, or it could be just...
Very cute. Let's hold it up there long enough just to get the full shot here so we can show both borders. From the big one to the little one up at the ceiling. Very nice.
Yeah.
And what does a border do? Does it expand a room or?
Well, it's something that it really doesn't expand the room too much. We need to take this one down first.
Okay.
It just divides the room and gives you some extra color.
Now we should say for television purposes we have these up by Velcro, but
yes.
In real life
you wouldn't do that.
You could do it though probably, couldn't you?
It would.
It'd be thick.
I actually have, we may need to hit the Velcro. I've got these stuck to foam core that actually the borders themselves are fairly flimsy. So you couldn't do it with Velcro. It's actually much easier. You can use either a vinyl to vinyl adhesive if you're going over a wall covering, or you can just use regular wall covering paste.
Great.
Now this is one that...
It's very pretty.
Somewhere I'm trying to find the Velcro. Adds for a little more dramatic. You'd use it in a dining room. It's something that gives you a splash of color, kind of a country French look. So you have a look of a country, but it's a little more sophisticated.
Very nice. Let's bring in someone from home. Phyllis from Allison Park. Good morning to you.
Hi, I basically have an older home that really had a lot of swirls in the plaster to begin with, and it's been painted over so many times that it's kind of flat, but it's not so flat that I could put up wallpaper. And I'm wondering, should I in fact replaster this wall to put the swirls back into it again, or should I just spackle up the little chips and holes and just paint over it again and leave it the way it is?
Well, it's something that, a technique that my wall covering installers will sometimes use. For getting rid of like rough plaster, you just take an ordinary house brick. You know how a brick is kind of rough? You just take that and rub that over the wall, and that will, instead of sanding it, just knocks off the rest of them, so you can then get a smoother surface that you can either paint over or you can wallpaper over if that's something you want to do.
Oh my gosh. Now, would the brick leave red clay on the wall?
It'll just leave a clay dust. But if you're painting it or wall covering, it really doesn't matter.
That's a good tip, isn't it?
It really doesn't matter,
Okay.
but it just knocks off the things.
What do we have here?
Okay, now what we have here, this is a little different type technique. This is one that it has corners and little jewels in the center with this. This is a technique that you could use as a bordering technique either around the walls, or you could also use it on the ceilings. That you would put it in the four corners of the ceiling, and then you could have just plain painted walls underneath.
Nice. Now, is this border that's cut out?
The border is, this takes a lot of time because this actually comes on a roll that has the four corners plus the center details on one strip. And you have to, with a pair of scissors, so it's kind of labor intensive.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done it for the whole room, all the way around.
Yeah.
And I cut out just as intricately, and it's beautiful. It just makes these borders come alive because I cut the top but not the bottom. So the bottom is flat, and then the top is the cutouts of the flowers, and it looks like window boxes all the way around. But it does take a long time. And you do need a lot of patience. But if you sit there watching television, you can just keep working like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's wonderful. Now, I've got some other borders again that we can look at. They're right behind after we get the Velcro off. They're right behind. I can...
Now, are we pretending this is a wall
Velcro's
or a
great.
ceiling?
This was pretending to be a wall.
Okay.
It could be also something that could frame around a window or something as...
Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, this is one... The Velcro's not working today.
That's all right.
This is one that is going a little more dramatic.
Go ahead.
It's going a little stronger in colors, but you can see if you look at this on the plain wall covering, it's very similar to some of the textures you can create if instead of the strong sponge painting colors, the pink, the green, the blue, that we had just used a tan, a lighter tan, and a darker tan, you get more of a mottled effect like this wall covering that you can see that you got a lot of details
and
on.
let's try one more.
We've got...
Because this is wild. Actually, there are two wild ones here. How about this? You like that?
Now, this is something that could be wonderfully fun for a den, a study, someplace where you want a little more exotic kind of a look.
I love it. With the leopard spots and the orchids.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? Here comes the final wild one. If you really want to go formal for your Greek dinner, or if you want to pretend that you're the theater, maybe you want the dining room to look like the Benedum. How's that?
What's wonderful about this is because it's got a background that actually has like an architectural detail. So it's adding some architectural details to the house that you may not have, especially if you've got a newer home. They no longer are doing moldings and that type of a treatment on your windows. So this adds it. And actually, this is one that Pittsburgh's audience is the first ones to see this. When I was calling to get the samples, they said, we've got a new one. It hasn't even been introduced. It's not in a wallpaper book. Let me send you a sample of it.
Who makes this?
This is made by Robert Crowder, a firm out of California.
Great. Nancy, thank you so much. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, more demonstrations to come. And of course, Nancy will be joining us just a little bit later for an open forum, showing off some spring look. Next, to share her hints with us, Betty Ginsburg, who is the owner. Welcome, Betty. Glad you're joining us. Morning. Owner of Betty Ginsburg Interiors, which is located not far away from here, actually, in Churchill. And she is also a member of the American Society of Interior Designers. So where do we start, Betty?
All right, let's start off with the first thing that is going to be the easiest. If you barely sew, this is for you. But if you can use a pair of scissors. Now, this type of upholstery covering is really referred to as a throw because unlike a slip cover, It is not fitted. It's meant to be casual. Now, some of these fabrics today were purchased at a place that you may not have thought of looking before, a paint store. This, believe it or not, is a new drop cloth that a painter might use. They're being printed now in designs. This is one happened to have stripes. And believe it or not, when they printed it and it came off the rollers, it was left with this great border. You could do anything that you wanted to with it. Let's just say you wanted to cut it for an ornament about this size. You probably would have to do about a piece, let me see, 3 feet by 2.5 feet. If you could grab a corner here, I decided to finish off the edges. You wouldn't necessarily have to, but it does make it easier. And we'll just lay it right over here.
Okay.
Now, on this drop cloth, this painter's drop cloth, they usually come in large sizes, about 9 by 6 or 12 by 15. So you measure it before you cut it using the regular tailor's tape.
Right.
This rope was purchased at an awning shop, and it had such a nice shine to it that I decided to use it instead of a more expensive, perhaps, drapery cord. Anyway, if you will hold this here, we're going to use this to keep it from sliding off when you sit on it, and add a little bit of decoration. Now, you could add tassels and whatnot. Now, I'm going to wrap this around twice.
Okay.
I'll take that. You don't have to. This is about 20 feet of rope.
This has beautiful sheen to it.
Right. And
looks satiny.
All right, now I'm going to
And this
reach
is from an
around
awning
here.
shop?
Yes, from a tent and awning shop, excuse me, where you can, however, the one may or may not be a drawback to you, that it only comes in this natural color.
Okay.
And you can twist it if you happen to be talented enough to know some nice nautical ropes. You could use that, get it in here, and move it
a neat idea.
to the side if you want, or just lit in the middle. And then you can just fix your corners.
Wow. And what you want to ask for in a hardware store is a...
Or a paint store, is a regular painter's drop cloth.
But one with print on it.
Right, and they come in a sort of a sponge pattern, different colors. You could have taken this border and cut it off and continued it over here on all 4 sides, and I just decided to do it on 2 sides.
Great idea.
A little bit easier.
What's next?
Now, this fabric was purchased at an awning shop. And the reason I did was because I didn't like to sew. And this was, they come in such nice widths, up to 110 inches wide.
This is like kind of like a canvas, right?
Right, it is. It's duck. And about a 4-ounce weight you could ask for, which is just perfect. It has a nice drape to it. Now, this is just a piece that's probably about 3 feet by 2 feet. On here, I used some of the painting techniques that were shown previously. This one was used with a stipple brush. If you
stipple.
Right. This is used often by painters to put texture in plaster. Purchased at a paint store.
Here you go.
And just dipped in paint. This is done with household latex flat paint.
Got it.
That had been used on the walls, just a very little bit. Now, when you try to think of a pattern, I want to point out, please don't try to cover the whole canvas, because then you'd have to treat it with a base coat as you would a wall. But if you do it like this, you keep the fabric from shrinking as it dries. So that's why we use the light technique. Now, in your right hand, these are sponges that can be purchased at the drugstore. They're cosmetic sponges that you
and they're very cheap.
Foundation.
You
Right,
buy a whole bunch of them.
And after this part had dried, and I used a hair dryer to speed the process along, then you can just take a darker color and print it. Now,
hold on one second. So if we've got the technique right, what you did is you took the rust-colored paint and you stippled it along here, and then just put the blocks on with cosmetic sponges.
Right.
And you've developed kind of a helix pattern.
right.
Yeah, okay.
You can do anything you want. And as I said, if you really feel that you'd like to put a very heavy pattern on it, make sure that you make a frame, a wood frame, so that you can adhere it, and then the fabric will not shrink and ripple on you. Now, I have not, as you will see as I'm working this, I didn't even hem this at all.
A woman after my own heart, yes.
Okay. And by the way, before I started even to print, I just threw this over the chair and marked my space where I would do the printing with pins.
Okay.
And just left them on. So you want to be careful when you're starting to work with this. Now, if I could have you, Ann, come back here and hold this.
Okay, I'm holding.
Okay, right?
Right there.
And this is something that you try several times to get the effect that you want. The idea is, if this were a side chair in a living room, or you have those extra chairs at the buffet that you don't like to keep at the table all the time, and you want to dress them up for the holidays or for the spring. Okay, just if you could just hold this.
Got it. Hold it.
Right?
Bunching it up. How am I doing as a helper?
Great.
Great.
You're a great. All right, now I'm going to use, to hold this in the back, an industrial weight rubber band, I call it.
No kidding.
Now you could use probably wire or something else, but I've just decided to use this. All right.
Okay.
Now I'm going to take this, and you want to pull this tautly from the top so that you catch as much of it as you can, and you bring it all up
Into kind of a rosette.
into kind of a rosette, and you don't have to do any sewing. Take your rubber band, wrap it tightly, and pray it doesn't break.
Pull it out into the rosette. That
Right.
is clever.
Now, after you get this, you can see that it's longer in here. I need to work with this a little more. And if you'll have the time to do this.
Okay.
Now,
But for our purposes, here, I'll help you with that. I'll
Okay.
finish the rubber band back
all right.
here.
Now, what I've taken, I have also purchased some more rope at the awning shop and found some gold package thread that I'd had put away. I just wrapped this rope to give a little bit of shine to it. This is smaller than what was used on there. We're going to take this, wrap it like this, bring it on around, and tie it. Come up here,
Cute.
tie it just to help secure it a little bit. And
Nice idea. There you go.
we have a new look.
Wonderful. And now let's come on over. Okay, actually, before we start on the sofa, come on over here. We'll
Right.
take a rest right here, and we'll be waiting for you when you come right back to join us again in just a moment. Brings of a final idea from Betty Ginsburg, what to do with your sofa.
All right, this will be quick. This entails,
What do we do?
however, unfortunately, a little more sewing, but I just want to give you an idea. Now, this sofa was originally a very tailored sofa, and let's say you wanted to give it a more cushiony look. Not only can you give it a new look, but with this throw just barely fitted, you can also give it a new change in color. Two
my
choices
gosh.
in color.
And you've made one kind of a wool and the other one a suede.
It's a suede. It's like an ultra suede material. So washable, very practical. Now, I have chosen to make it in different pieces because I wanted this type of contemporary, sort of an Italian look throw. Now, inside, you have your filling, Dacron polyester, doubled. It was laid, this case, if you think of it as a pillowcase, it was just sewn, this was laid in it, and then the channels were sewn so that your fiber will not move on you, and it'll stay. And then when it's attached inside of this case, wherever there is a seam, this is also attached.
Okay.
Now, the one part, you have to have an industrial type of machine to do it, or your upholsterer can do it for you. But as you can see, it gives you an entirely different look. If you have accident spills,
Can we hold
you have
this
a
up
new
to just
style.
show what the
Yes.
form looks like? This is the old PT sofa underneath,
Right.
yes. And this is what it looks like. This is how you sew it. So you've got the armchair curves. If we could pull out there just a little bit. Yeah, just drop that down, Betty, so we can,
Okay.
there you go. You can see that it has the indentations of a sofa and the form of a sofa. And then let's be real wacky and we'll flip it around and turn
All
it
right,
over.
here,
You
I'll
take
give
my
this.
end, I'll take your end, and I got stuck. And we'll have a quick change.
It is heavy. All right.
Isn't that neat? That is a great idea. Boy, talk about getting bright for spring. Betty Ginsburg, thank you so much for your great ideas here. We're going to have you come back and
Thank
answer
you.
questions
It's a
in just a
pleasure.
moment. you can step off this way, and then I am going to leap off the stage and come down here and say hello to Susan Arch. Good morning to you,
nice
Susan.
to meet you.
And she is the owner of Arch Interiors in Sewickley. Let's welcome Susan. What about the windows after you've done your new look on the walls?
Okay, what I'd like to do is a southwest window treatment using a minimal amount of fabric and some things that people have everywhere. This is a timber that I've picked up at a floral supply company.
Floral supply.
Floral
right.
supply.
Okay.
But you could use a piece of birch from your backyard and strip the bark off, or a wood pole. We're just going to place that up here. And I wouldn't worry about it being uneven looking because that'll add to the southwest nature. Okay, this is a blanket shawl. It's about 54 inches by 72 inches. We're just going to casually drape this over.
Good thing you're taller than I am.
Yep, I have heels on today. That helped me a little bit. I cheated. And it's nice to have something with fringe because
That
it'll
is
help
so clever.
help to add to the decorative nature of it. When you have time at home, these things need a little bit of work to get them to look just right. Very simple. Here I've made some fabric panels. I've sewn them up on 3 sides and put a little pocket at the top. Put a curtain rod through for privacy. This is a great idea. We'll add another one.
Whoops.
Whoops. Work good on paper.
Things always fall apart. Here we
Okay.
go. I'll help.
Yeah, if we can put that through there.
Not a problem.
Okay. We'll attach that. Let me slide it through this side first. Okay.
And then up into that. There you go.
Is it on?
We got it. Yep. How are we doing?
Oh, wait, we have to move over
You
one
veteran
more.
curtain hangers. Anybody want to volunteer for this? Anybody taller than we are?
Okay, now this works good for privacy, but if you want something a little different, I've made some fabric rosettes here with a hook. We'll attach those here.
Oh, that is a cute idea.
Whoops. Okay, and we'll add a few Southwest accessories.
Very neat. Don't you love the way this comes back?
There we go.
Adding a nice
We're done.
dimension. Very nice. Okay. The magic change.
That's right.
All right. What are we doing next?
Okay. Next, I'd like to do a little girl's room.
Okay.
This comes off a lot easier than it went up.
Right. Now, are we getting rid of these curtain rods?
Yes, that comes down.
Oh, they're stuck.
There we go. Take that.
And the hooks, yes.
Okay.
We're doing pretty well for quick change, don't you think?
Okay, Ann, I'd like you to help me if you could. We're going to pin this border up.
Okay.
I like to recommend that people start with a theme of something, whether it's a border for color.
Oh, you men are laughing out there that I'm too short to do this. You're right. Come on, somebody stand up over here and help me out. Sir, come on over here. You can help. You didn't know you were going to be enlisted for duty this morning. Go for it. You laughed the loudest, so you can help the most. How about that? Okay. There we go. Yeah,
Okay.
very well done. Thank you.
Okay. This is just a piece of puckered chintz. Nice for a little girl. We're going to do this asymmetrical, an uneven way, a little bit of a short side on the one side and long on the other. Just slip that right through our swag holders. Blouse it out a little bit. Now this is where you need the handwork. It might take you a half an hour or 45 minutes at home to get this just right. I've put a few hems in it to make it look neat. Take a piece of string, About 10 inches below this cup hook, we'll tie it off a little bit.
All right, while we're doing the tying, we're going to leave you in suspense, and we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and pick up where we left off. And just have we been doing some fast work during a commercial break? Let's take a look at Susan's finished product there. And Susan, maybe you'd like to tell us what you did.
I just added some silk flower nosegays with little birds to bring a little bit of the outdoors in. The blind, I appliqued some fabric on with fabric glue to match the border, and added some purchased fabric trim, and it makes a nice room for a little girl.
Very nice. Beautiful idea. Okay. We have Nancy, Betty, and Susan ready to take your questions, so let's open the phone lines. Robin from Newcastle, good morning.
Morning. I have an awful lot of dark paneling in my house. In my bedroom, it's the laminated paneling, and in my living room, dining room combination, it's the rough-hewn paneling. And I was wondering if there was anything I could do with it short of ripping it out and causing a mess.
Okay, thanks for your question.
One method, you could fill the grooves. If you have grooves between the paneling, you can fill them with a compound that you can find out at your paint store. Then also they sell what is called a liner that can be put right over it. And upon that, you can't just paint, but you can do wall covering. So that's one method that you can do.
Something else I've done, I just completed a job where the paneling was old knotty pine, and it had an old look. It was dark, and what we did is totally stripped it and pickled it light, and also added some new furnishings to match.
How do you pickle it?
Well, you need to have a wood finisher come in, and he actually strips the old finish off and the varnish and then restains it in a light wood.
Okay, I bet you could probably find a kid to do that yourself too. Janice from Franklin Park, good morning.
My question is about my bedroom drapes, and I have peach-colored walls and a cathedral ceiling and tan-colored carpeting. My bedroom has a really big window in the front, and my bedspread, one is like a mint green color with some other pastel accents in it, and the other one is an off-white with some purple lilacs in it. I was wondering what color drapes I should do. I have white shears up right now, but I wanted some kind of a drape.
Okay, thanks for your question. We'll put it to the experts.
Did she say she had peach-colored walls?
Peach walls.
All right. If you have a large window, let's say, and you don't want to draw a lot of attention to it, many times you can get a fabric that matches the walls, and that way you let the focal point be on your bed cover. It depends on what you want to do, what kind of a look.
Okay, let's move on. BG from Moon Township. Good morning.
And my question is to Nancy about painting, and I wanted to know about the roll and rag technique.
Okay, that's a technique that you can use a couple of different options. One option to use a rag, that you can use a rag, clump it up, and use it like I use the sponge, where you're actually applying paint with a rag to give a little more of a softer, not as defined speckle kind of a look. The roll and rag is one that you would start with the same, like the combing technique that I used, where you start with your high gloss enamel underneath, you put your paint on top, and then you take a rag like you're going to wring it out. You place it on the wall, and then you just roll it upwards at an angle, and as it starts to remove the paint, it leaves a pattern and a design.
Okay, right here.
I have a question. I have two end tables, and they're kind of older, and they're like painted kind of a light beige color. But the wood on the top surface is kind of peeled back. I wonder if there's some way of filling that and like repainting them, you know, to make them look newer without getting rid of the tables, you know?
I think what you might have to do is literally strip the table entirely. Take it all the way down, and then you'd want to prime it, put a coat of paint on it, spray it with lacquer, maybe do a little bit of marbleizing with adding some other colors, or actually going with the brush like this and spattering some color on. Then you will want to seal it with a lacquer so that you could put a glass on it and not worry about chipping it.
Okay. Linda from Bloomfield, good morning.
Good morning. My question is I have a 64 by 36 window in my living room, and they're side by side, and I'd like to keep it as one window, and if I use two drapes, it looks like there's too much curtain. I'd like to know if you have any suggestions.
All right, thanks. Anybody?
Okay.
I think the best way to do that would be to perhaps put a panel in the middle of them so that you have a panel on each side and one in the center, maybe two long ones on the outside and a shorter one in the center, and do a valance across the whole top to make it look like one.
So you can kind of fool the eye.
That's right.
Right? Okay. All right, we'll take a break and we're going to come back.